In the bustling town of Capernaum, nestled along the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, life moved with a rhythm shaped by fishermen, merchants, and Roman soldiers. The air was thick with the sounds of daily life, children laughing, vendors calling out their wares, and the distant clatter of sandals on stone streets. Yet, beneath this lively surface, stories of pain and hope quietly unfolded. Among the Roman occupiers was a centurion, a man of discipline and authority, respected and perhaps even feared by many. But behind his stoic exterior, he carried a burden that weighed heavily on his heart. Despite his power, he was helpless in the face of suffering within his own household. His beloved servant, more like family than a mere attendant, had fallen gravely ill. Paralyzed and racked with pain, the servant's condition grew worse with each passing day. The centurion watched, powerless, as the one he cared for hovered near death, his suffering a constant ache in the centurion's soul. Desperation led the centurion to listen more closely to the whispers in the marketplace, stories of a Jewish teacher named Jesus. People spoke in awe of miraculous healings, of demons cast out, and of a compassion that crossed boundaries of class and creed. The centurion, a man used to command, was struck by tales of Jesus' authority, an authority that seemed to come from heaven itself. With hope flickering in his heart, the centurion made a decision that would change everything. Setting aside pride and protocol, he sought out Jesus, believing that this man held the power to heal with just a word. Each step toward Jesus was a step of faith, a silent prayer for mercy and a miracle. This is the story of a Roman centurion's plea, a servant's suffering, and the extraordinary compassion of Jesus Christ. It is a story of faith that crossed cultural divides, of humility in the face of need, and of the unmatched authority of the one called the Son of God. In Capernaum, a miracle was about to unfold, one that would echo through history as a testament to the power of faith and the boundless mercy of Jesus. Matthew chapter 8, verses 5 through 13, New King James Version. In this passage, we are transported to the ancient town of Capernaum, a bustling hub on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. The air is thick with anticipation, as word of Jesus' miracles and teachings has spread throughout the region. People from all walks of life, fishermen, merchants, travelers, and Roman officials, move through the narrow streets, each carrying their own burdens and hopes. Now when Jesus had entered Capernaum, the town seemed to pause as if holding its breath. The people recognized him, some with awe, others with curiosity, and a few with skepticism. Among the crowd, a figure stood out, a Roman centurion, a man of authority and discipline, yet carrying a heavy heart. A centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, "Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, dreadfully tormented." This was no ordinary request. The centurion, a foreigner and a representative of Rome, approached Jesus not with demands but with humility and desperation. His voice trembled with concern for his servant, a young man who had become more like family than property. And Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." With these words, Jesus broke through social and cultural barriers. He did not hesitate or question the centurion's background. Instead, he responded with compassion, offering to enter the home of a Gentile, an act that would have been unthinkable for many in that time. The centurion answered and said, "Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed." His humility was striking. Despite his rank and power, he recognized something greater in Jesus, a spiritual authority that transcended earthly status. He believed that Jesus' word alone held the power to heal, even from a distance. The centurion continued, "For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." In these words, he revealed his understanding of authority, not just as a matter of command, but as a chain of trust and obedience. He saw in Jesus a divine authority, one that could command illness itself to depart. The centurion's analogy was profound. Just as his soldiers obeyed his word without question, he believed that the forces of sickness and suffering would obey Jesus. This was not mere superstition, but a deep faith in the unseen power that Jesus wielded, a faith that recognized the spiritual reality behind the physical world. "And I say to this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." The centurion's life was built on the certainty of authority. Orders given, orders obeyed. Yet here he placed his trust in a higher authority, one that could command healing with a single word. The crowd listened in silence, sensing the gravity of the moment. The centurion's faith was not just in Jesus' ability to heal, but in his very identity as one sent by God. He saw what many in Israel had missed, that Jesus' authority was absolute, not limited by distance, tradition, or social boundaries. "And to my servant, do this," and he does it. The centurion's words echoed in the hearts of those present. They were a testimony to the power of faith. A faith that did not require signs or physical presence but trusted in the authority of Jesus' word alone. When Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to those who followed, "Assuredly I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel." Jesus was astonished, not by the centurion's position or words, but by the depth of his faith. Here was a Gentile, an outsider, who understood the nature of God's authority more clearly than many of God's own people. "And I say to you that many will come from east and west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven." Jesus' words were radical. He declared that the kingdom of heaven was open to all who believed, regardless of their background or heritage. The great patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, would be joined at the heavenly banquet by people from every nation, united by faith. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness. Jesus warned that heritage alone was not enough. Those who relied on their status or tradition but lacked true faith would find themselves outside the light of God's presence. It was a sobering reminder that faith, not privilege, was the key to the kingdom. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. These words painted a vivid picture of regret and sorrow. Jesus spoke not to condemn, but to awaken his listeners to the reality of spiritual consequences. The outer darkness was not just a place, but a state of being separated from the joy and fellowship of God's kingdom. Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go your way, and as you have believed, so let it be done for you." With these words, Jesus affirmed the centurion's faith. He did not need to see the servant or enter the house. The healing was accomplished by faith, through the authority of Jesus' word. The centurion's trust was rewarded and his servant's suffering was ended, and his servant was healed that same hour. The miracle was immediate and complete. In that moment, the centurion's home was filled with joy and wonder. The servant, once paralyzed and tormented, now stood whole and free. The centurion's faith had bridged the gap between heaven and earth, bringing healing not just to his household but to all who would hear and believe. This story, preserved in Matthew's Gospel, continues to inspire us today, reminding us that true faith recognizes the authority of Jesus, trusts in his word, and opens the door to miracles beyond our imagination. Luke chapter 7 verses 1 through 10, New King James Version. In this passage we are invited to witness a remarkable encounter that reveals the depth of Jesus' compassion and the extraordinary humility and faith of a Roman centurion. The story unfolds in the ancient town of Capernaum, a place bustling with life, commerce, and a diverse mix of cultures and beliefs. Here, the boundaries between Jew and Gentile, between the powerful and the powerless, are tested and ultimately transcended by the power of faith and love. Now when he concluded all his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. The air was thick with anticipation, as word of Jesus' teachings and miracles had spread throughout the region. People from all walks of life gathered to see him, hoping to witness a sign or hear words that would change their lives. Capernaum, a fishing village on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, had become a focal point for Jesus' ministry, a place where the ordinary and the miraculous often met. And a certain centurion's servant who was dear to him was sick and ready to die. This centurion was not just any Roman officer. He was a man of authority, responsible for the lives and discipline of many soldiers. Yet, despite his status, he cared deeply for his servant, a young man who had become more like family than property. The servant's illness was grave and the centurion's heart was heavy with worry and sorrow. In a world where servants were often overlooked, this centurion's compassion set him apart. So when he heard about Jesus, he sent elders of the Jews to him, pleading with him to come and heal his servant. The centurion, though a Gentile and an officer of the occupying Roman force, had earned the respect and affection of the local Jewish community. He knew that as a non-Jew, he might not be welcome to approach Jesus directly, so he humbly asked the Jewish elders, men of standing and influence, to intercede on his behalf. Their willingness to go was a testament to the centurion's character and the bridges he had built between cultures. And when they came to Jesus, they begged him earnestly, saying that the one for whom he should do this was deserving. The elders did not simply relay the centurion's request, they pleaded with Jesus, their voices filled with urgency and sincerity. They spoke of the centurion's kindness, his generosity, and his love for their people. In their eyes, he was not just a foreigner or a soldier, he was a friend, a benefactor, someone who had shown them respect and compassion in a time of occupation and tension. For he loves our nation and has built us a synagogue. This was no small gesture. The construction of a synagogue was a significant act of goodwill, a tangible sign of the centurion's respect for the Jewish faith and his desire to support the community. In a land marked by division and suspicion, his actions spoke louder than words. The elders' testimony revealed a man who used his power not to oppress but to uplift and serve others. Then Jesus went with them. Without hesitation, Jesus responded to the plea for help. He did not see the centurion's nationality or uniform, he saw a heart full of compassion and faith. As he walked through the narrow streets of Capernaum, accompanied by the elders and a growing crowd, Jesus demonstrated that his mission was not limited by boundaries of race, status, or tradition. His love and mercy were for all who sought him regardless of their background. And when he was already not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to him, saying to him, the centurion, watching from his home, saw Jesus approaching. Overwhelmed by a sense of unworthiness, he sent a second delegation, this time his own friends, to deliver a message. He recognized the holiness of Jesus and the vast difference between his own authority and the divine authority Jesus possessed. His humility was profound, and his faith was unwavering. Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof. The centurion's words were filled with reverence and humility. In the culture of the time, a Jewish teacher entering the home of a Gentile could be seen as a violation of religious purity. The centurion, sensitive to these customs, sought to spare Jesus any discomfort or criticism. But more than that, he was deeply aware of his own limitations and the greatness of the one he was addressing. Therefore I did not even think myself worthy to come to you. The centurion's humility was not a sign of weakness, but of strength. He understood the true nature of authority, not as something to be wielded for personal gain, but as a responsibility to serve others. He recognized that, before God, all human power is limited. His approach was marked by respect, self-awareness, and a deep sense of awe. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. The centurion's faith was extraordinary. He believed that Jesus' authority was so absolute, so complete, that a mere word spoken from a distance could bring healing and life. He did not need a ritual, a touch, or a spectacle. He trusted in the power of Jesus' word alone. This was faith in its purest form, confident, humble, and unshakable. For I also am a man placed under authority, having soldiers under me. The centurion explained his understanding of authority by drawing on his own experience as a military officer. He knew what it meant to give orders and to have them obeyed without question. He recognized that Jesus operated with a far greater authority, one that extended beyond the physical realm, reaching into the very fabric of life and death. And I say to one, go, and he goes. The centurion's analogy was simple, yet profound. Just as his soldiers responded instantly to his commands, he believed that sickness and suffering would respond to the command of Jesus. He saw in Jesus a power that was both commanding and compassionate, a power that could not be contained by human limitations. And to another, come, and he comes. The centurion's words revealed a deep trust in Jesus' ability to act, even from a distance. He did not need to see the process, he only needed to believe in the outcome. His faith was not based on signs or proof but on the certainty of who Jesus was. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. In these words, the centurion expressed a profound understanding of spiritual authority. He recognized that Jesus' word was enough, that it carried the power to heal, to restore, and to transform. His faith was active, practical, and deeply rooted in humility. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him and turned around and said to the crowd that followed him, Jesus was astonished, not by the centurion's rank or achievements, but by his faith. In all of Israel, among those who had witnessed miracles and heard his teachings, Jesus had not found faith as pure and as bold as this. The crowd, made up of Jews and Gentiles, rich and poor, stood in awe as Jesus lifted up the centurion as an example for all to follow. I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. With these words, Jesus shattered expectations and challenged assumptions. he declared that true faith is not bound by heritage, tradition, or status. It is found in the hearts of those who trust in God's power and goodness, who approach him with humility and confidence. The centurion's faith became a beacon, illuminating the path for all who seek God with sincerity and hope. And those who were sent, returning to the house, found the servant well who had been sick. The miracle was complete. Not only was the servant healed, but the hearts of all who witnessed the event were touched and transformed. The centurion's story reminds us that compassion, humility, and faith have the power to bridge every divide. In the quiet faith of a Roman officer and the boundless mercy of Jesus, we see a glimpse of the kingdom of God, a kingdom where love knows no boundaries and where every act of faith is met with grace. Both Matthew and Luke record this miracle with slight differences, but the message is the same. Jesus marveled at the centurion's faith. A Roman soldier, a Gentile outsider, showed greater belief than many in Israel. It's a reminder that faith is not about status, heritage, or power. Faith is about trusting fully in the authority of Jesus Christ. Without ever stepping foot in the centurion's home, Jesus healed with just a word. His authority stretches beyond distance, beyond sickness, beyond every human limitation. The servant who was near death rose with strength and life. Indeed, the word of Christ is enough. This miracle teaches us the power of faith, the humility of a heart that trusts in the authority of Jesus Christ. Like the centurion, we too can come to him with our burdens. We too can believe his word is enough, and we too can see his power to heal, restore, and save. So will you trust him today? Subscribe for more cinematic stories of Jesus Christ.